Valentine's Day, everybody. February 14th, 10 o'clock. Here we
I
go.
didn't know that.
Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about something we implemented in our agency and kind of give some transparency to it. This is kind of another thing that Brittany we kind of talked about this previously about, a couple new things we're implementing this year. This is one of those things, right? The leadership, tracker kind of thing. So why don't you pull it up and you can start talking to it and we can have a little discussion around why we built it, what it does, and why we have it.
Let's do it. All right. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, we can. It's great.
Cool.
It's
Awesome.
not super clear, but I think that's just more the resolution issue. So
Okay. Well, let me know. We can hop out of it and just talk.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want me to give a little overview of what this is?
Yeah,
I guess
do a high-level overview.
Yeah, we should start with why we needed a leadership team. So when you get to a certain point in scaling, you realize that you can't just do it all yourself. And that's Michael brought me in, right? And then him and I did it all. And then I think we both realized that we needed more help with things like researching data that we needed to pull in order to make decisions or implementing things. Once you get so big, it's really, really hard to go through and just take care of it all from idea to implementation. So the last...
No, we do that. That's what we do. We don't let anyone ever do this stuff, right? No, I think it was a huge step for us to finally get there, to finally say, okay, hey, we can't do it all. We have to allow our team to do some things as well. So.
Well, and I think we got there by looking at our to-do list that it didn't shrink. It used to shrink and it was always nice and clean and we were in traction doing all those things. And then we got to a point where we were oh my gosh, there's stuff on here from 6 months ago that we just haven't even gotten to. So I think it was the first sign that we needed just more help. And I think where we needed the help was kind of taking an idea, but then finding the other variables we needed to kind of formulate a process or formulate what we wanted the end result to look like. So we found, we already had, I'd say department managers, which they still are. We had people who oversaw, all of the standard departments in our agency, but we kind of just had them doing their day-to-day, right? And most of it was a lot of people management or just making sure clients were happy and things were getting done. And then last year we decided to create a leadership team. And the leadership team, the goal of this was to bring people into our space a little bit more to make them feel like they could have an impact on the company, which was a really fulfilling feeling for a lot of them. So with that, we kind of gave a little incentive of a 4-day work week if you guys can hit certain KPIs. And so I created this in Monday in an afternoon where I was, trying to figure out Michael's big thing, right? How are you going to track these things? And so this is what just kind of came to mind as an easy way to do this. So I'll run you through it and then we can just kind of talk from there. So at the very top, I kind of give a little timer for what quarter we're in, our goals for the quarter, and then it breaks it down by person. And it's a Tuesday, so it's actually a good day to look at this because we've got people who are still in planning or in motion. But essentially what this is these little batteries show on a monthly basis and a weekly basis the progress people have made on usually about 1 to 3 tasks given them for a next step in something. So our projects in this space revolve around retention, research, and then making sure that we're implementing. So those are kind of where we often leverage this leadership team. And then we gave everybody, this is kind of cool, the impact score kind of shows where everybody's at in terms of things that directly impact the agency. So right now I kind of loosely gauge each thing by a 5-star is we'll retain clients, right? This is our number one goal is on the back end of things is retention. So 5 stars is something that will directly have a positive impact on retention. 4 would be a process. So some type of new process we've implemented. 3 would be a research task or something that's more of an audit. And then the other ones, 1 and 2, which I haven't even really given, because then they probably shouldn't be on this board, would be more admin things. So that's kind of how we've slowly structured this. But it's very fulfilling. The feedback we've gotten from our team, and I have them all, they're all on their own little boards that feed into this. That's how we get all of these things. But the feedback so far from the team has been that they One, absolutely love it. They love being able to feel like they have an impact. And two, it's helping them kind of prioritize. So a big part of the 4-day work week and like the whole idea around that is you teach your team how to better prioritize because they want that fifth day off. So this has been a really cool tool for us to make sure that the things we care about are getting done, and then they're being rewarded for that. And this is outside of like all their standard responsibilities. So it's cool. This is like an additional space that they get to be in. Okay, now I've talked a lot, so you can talk.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of your thing. And like you said, we had to have a way to track it, right? And had to have a way to at least understand if we're making an impact or not, right? Through this stuff. Sometimes it's nice to put a new initiative in there, and then all of a sudden it's not, that it's not really worth it anymore, so to speak, where this is really coming in and, tracking it. And then, people are getting that day off right now, which I think people are loving, right? And then I think they're disappointed when they don't get it, which they only get to look at themselves on that, right? Like, it's interesting because, I read something after we released the 4-day. There's a number of one of the groups I'm in. They talked a lot about actually cutting people's hours, right? Because there's a lot of layoffs right now in the tech space and things like that. And, cutting people's hours to 32 hours a week. So they get the 4-day work week, but they don't get paid for the 5th day, right? And that's not what we're doing here. We're paying for the 5th day. We're paying for people that, do their work well and do their work efficiently, right? We had somebody that we had to have a conversation with, right? And why don't you talk a little bit about, like, we had to have a PIP plan for them, right? Or whatever,
Yeah.
write up, I guess, right? Because what they were supposed to do wasn't great, but the good thing that came out of that was all this feedback that this person gave, right? So
yeah. What goes hand in hand for us as leaders in our agency is making sure that hard conversations still revolve around support. So it's not this authoritarian type of leadership. It's very much like making sure that we can help them be successful. You'll know whether or not someone's going to be a good fit, right? Michael's always taught me, is it a people issue or process issue? So we had to, kind of like a parent, right? We had to follow through with what we said we were going to do. If someone made a mistake or did something that we felt like we can't have happen again, there was a write-up, a conversation, but out of the conversation, we kind of got our eyes open. It was actually an account manager to their like direct report as a client success manager. We were able to get some good feedback on making their relationship better and like their communication lines a little bit clearer. So it's a really great thing to have. Like, reward and obviously goals are always essential when you're trying to build a great team. But there's another side to that. Like, what do you do if someone doesn't hit those? Or what do you do when people aren't kind of meeting your expectations? And PIPs are great. They're probably a whole other conversation, but I think that they are more of a positive way to go about those conversations rather than just like kind of pulling someone in and, having it just like loosely.
So how do you spin it? How do you spin it to be a positive conversation? Because I find those conversations, you said it's kind of like being a parent. It's so much easier for me to have that conversation with my 3 and 5-year-old, right? When I have to put in a PIP plan for them and tell them what's going on versus, it's not easy. I've always found that not a fun conversation to have. It's almost like it's not like I love having PIP conversations with my kids, but I know they need it, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, we know that our employees need it too if they're messing up. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's the positivity sandwich. It's how I teach them to also kind of lead with their teams. So the conversation comes in, you pull someone in because they didn't do something right, or you need to have that like challenging conversation. I usually start with something that's like a little lighter, a little more positive. I always have stated, and this is where like I think it helps my own nerves. I state what I'm doing on the call. Like, what is the goal of this call, right? I'm going to address something that's not super fun, but we're going to try and work through it. We're going to talk about solutions. the end goal of this conversation is for you to walk away feeling like you have the support that you need to be successful. So that's typically how those conversations are going to open up. And then I felt like it kind of lets everybody like breathe for a minute. And then we talk about it, what happened here? Why did it happen? I think giving prompts to your team or asking questions is the smartest way to go about like having people actually give feedback on that. Because as an employee, I think it is hard for us to sit in conversations and be told what we do wrong, but not be given guidance or the support or even just the brainstorming of like, how do we fix it? Because I've found that sometimes, especially like account managers, when they've got 30 accounts and they miss something, it comes down sometimes to like helping them just work through their own thoughts or giving them some ideas on like personal organization or something that might help them. Whereas just leaving them with, you did this wrong and here's my expectation, and then they walk away, they could be sitting there just swirling, not knowing what to do next. And that's where people end up feeling really defeated. So the PIPs are great because the way they're structured is like, here's your job responsibilities, here's what you didn't meet, and then here's kind of what we're going to do for support. And then the last part of that, which is really important and it's a little bit harder, is what happens if they don't meet the expectation. So for us, we had someone who we had to have that conversation with. We gave, you're going to clean it up here in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then what happens if they don't, right? We'll reduce their hours. There's going to be consequence to that. So it's a bit more of a pleasant conversation when you can have enough information at hand to make it feel like you've at least given them some tools and you put some effort into it. You put a little thought into it.
Cool. I do think it's one we could probably dive into more and talk about. I think it's something, when you run an agency, this isn't what you look forward to doing, right? At least when I started it, it wasn't like, great, I get to create PIP plans and I'm going to have this process in place, right?
Yeah.
That's why you sign up for the Just Sell method, right? Because you don't have to deal with any of this stuff,
It's
right?
true.
That's part of it when you have an internal team and you have to handle it. You hope everything always goes well. And I think that's, what Brittany's brought to our agency is the structure around some of the soft skills that I didn't have or I don't really do well with. So, and maybe people, they walk out of a PIP plan thinking they just got a raise is pretty much what I think happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're super happy. I mean, I think they really appreciate the steps you lay out and how it's laid out and how they're have something going forward that they can work on instead of they're like, oh, geez, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. Like,
right.
I just suck, right?
What you experience is probably the most common because you guys are, this is your baby, right? And everyone, agency owner, this is like your baby and you're really emotionally tied to it. And you can get people on board with that. Like I would say I'm emotionally tied to this company too, but it's different. And I think that's where it's a little bit easier for us to kind of compartmentalize all of that.
Yeah, cool.
Oh,
all right. Sounds like Roxy wants to go outside.
Yeah.
You don't know, Brittany has this dog.
I do.
Has this little control thing. It can hit its paw and it says
smart.
outside, and she's smart. So that, like, I'll be on a Zoom call with her and all of a sudden I'll hear this little machine that says outside because the dog wants to go outside. It's actually really funny.
Yeah. So. She's something else, that's for sure.
All right, cool. Well, let us know if you guys have any questions about this type of stuff we cover here. We'll be back next week discussing something else.
Cool.
Whatever that is, we don't know yet, but we'll find out. All right,